Let me put to you the same question that I put to the Treasurer the other night. Given that the nation has a high level of debt and the budget is still in deficit, why is now the time to cut income tax?
Because we've made hard decisions on economic reform. I mean, the fact of the matter is, even though we've had some criticism from some people, we're going to wind back the overly generous dividend imputation rules where people who don't pay income tax get an income tax refund. We're going to close down income splitting and discretionary trusts to just cap that at 30 cents. And importantly, we're going to reform negative gearing as well. So what we've done is we've said that we want to reform the tax system, and as a result, we can deliver more money for what I think is a great trifecta for Australia. Restore the funding and the cuts, reverse the cuts in schools and hospitals, be able to provide a much more, a better income tax cut for people up to $120,000, and also be in a better position to reduce debt, because we've made hard decisions and we're not giving $80 billion away to the big end of town either.
Well, on that point about reducing debt and then obviously getting the budget into balance, when would Labor return the budget to surplus?
Same year as the government.
So 2021?
No, the government said they'll return it to surplus in 1920, and so will we.
2020, you mean?
No, they said they'd do it in 2019, 2020.
Right, sorry, I see.
So it's the same as the government.
OK, right. If there's a blowout in that, then would you expect to follow them in terms of the blowout?
Do you mean if the government fail
to reach surplus next year? Would that be the same? You would not stick to your projection then?
We depend in part upon the government numbers. So if the government's got its numbers wrong, that's a challenge for all of us. But beyond that, we're actually making long-term reforms. And that's the difference. This government didn't do anything other than keep their old cuts. And what they're trying, they don't really have a plan, let's face it. They're offering you $10 and hope that you ignore the cuts, and everything's on the never-never. I mean, the full range of their much-vaunted personal income tax scheme will arrive in 7 years' time. I don't think Malcolm Turnbull will be around in 7 years' time. Look, it's a promise on the never-never.
Well, let's stick to what you've been proposing tonight. Your plan wouldn't benefit people who earn more than $120,000 a year. So let's take the example of a teacher. You might be a teacher, then a senior teacher, then a head of department, and then a principal. And you might hope that through your own hard work and some lucky opportunities that one day you might earn $120,000 or more a year. You said in your speech that your plan is a fair go for everyone, but why is somebody in the position now I've outlined not as worthy of a tax cut as a first-year teacher?
Well, your question presupposes that we're not doing anything else for people. That principal also lives in a community where they want to have well-funded schools and well-funded hospitals, and the reality is there's only so much money you've got. I've formed the view, and my Labor team's formed the view, that if we can look after 10 million taxpayers, and let's be straight tonight, what happened is I've almost doubled the tax cut offered by the government. I mean, this government said Labor doesn't support lower taxes. I've got the better offer for 10 million Australians.
But I'm just asking, if you're saying it's a fair go for everyone, it's not. It's not a fair go for high-income earners.
Well, no, let's be clear here. High-income earners need our support less than low-income earners. The fact of the matter is that if you're someone on a really good salary, I'm not going to say 120,000 is an amazing salary, but if you're someone on $1 million, this government's has reduced your taxes by $16,000. Like, at the end of the day, you've got to make choices. The deal I'm offering Australia is we'll reduce the national debt more quickly because we're not giving a lot of money away to the top end of town. We will restore funding to schools. We'll make sure hospitals and other services are properly funded, which this government's cutting. I mean, this government's basically, there is a clear choice. This government's saying to people, we'll give you $10 and forgive us our cuts and our other decisions. We're saying, no, we'll give you more, but that's also on the basis that we can fund our other schools and hospitals and essential services. That's the difference.
But on this
it's
point,
a priorities game.
To come back again to this point about fairness, an Australian on $200,000 a year pays $60,000 a year in tax. Somebody earning $50,000 a year pays $8,000 a year in tax. So the higher income earner gets about 4 times as much income, but they pay more than 7 times as much tax. How is that fair?
Well, first of all, you forget that the person on $60,000 also pays GST. You forget that this person's also paying higher electricity bills. Do you know, living on...
The person on $200,000 a year also has an expensive electricity bill.
Yes, but they have a greater capacity to pay, whereas someone on $60,000, Leigh, they're not making a lot of money, they're not saving a lot of money. Now, this is not a competition about who's got a harder luck story. But in government, you've got to make choices. Mr Turnbull wants to reduce taxes for the top end. I want to do a better deal for 10 million Australians. It's as simple as that.
You've announced you'll fund an extra 100,000 TAFE positions for locals. Unemployment's currently at 5.6%. The Reserve Bank classifies 5% as full employment. How are you going to fill those positions then when we're almost at full employment? Well,
nearly 9% of Australia are underemployed, Leigh. There's over so when we talk about unemployment, that number only captures part of the picture. We've got 700,000 plus people on the disability support pension. Very few of them get the chance to work. We've got job searchers and seekers who've given up. And of course, we've got 9% of people underemployed, and we've got nearly 4 million Australians in casual or part-time work. This idea that somehow everyone's on easy street pulling down $200,000 in Mr Turnbull's wonderful world, that's not the real world. There's insecure employment, and a lot of people need to retrain. There's a lot of people doing jobs now that won't exist in 10 years' time. TAFE is the educational institute for older Australians to get that second chance, and I can't believe the cuts this government have made to TAFE.
On your point about insecure employment, since budget night, a number of senators have raised concerns about the fact that the government didn't raise the New Start allowance from $40 a day. Even John Howard, who started work for the dole, says New Start should be raised. Why is Labor hiding behind a review instead of saying, given you've got some money to spend here, we'll do a $10 a week lift immediately and a review?
Yeah, that's a good question. The issue of New Start's real. Unlike the government, I don't pretend that it would be that you could live on $40 a day.
Well, why haven't you lifted it tonight?
Because one, we're not the government. Two, we need to review the payment system to work out what is adequate. But I certainly agree with a lot of the people who are saying it's an issue. And you probably didn't notice in my speech, I deliberately sent a message saying that job seekers living in poverty is an unacceptable set of circumstances.
Well, does that mean then, can we take it that you will offer an increase in New Start before the election? You're just not prepared to say yet what that would be?
Well, no, I'm not about to start spending billions of dollars on your show, even though I am defending the ABC in another forum against your cuts. No, but I do think it's an issue. What we're going to do is get the evidence, and there's plenty there, and look at what we can do. And, let's be straight up. I like that John Howard says he cares about New Start now. He had a chance for 12 years, didn't he?
On citizenship, which has been a bit of an issue this week, let me play you a clip of you speaking about citizenship in November last year.
Can you guarantee that no Labor MPs or senators will be caught up in this?
I am more than satisfied that Labor MPs, for our vetting process,
Can you guarantee rather than more than satisfied?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Roll gold.
Yes, I am very confident. And what's more is, when you have to look at the track record, it hasn't been Labor and its ministers who've been the problem here.
Now, we've seen this week that was way off reality. You've now lost 4 Labor MPs. The Coalition's already running that clip on social media as a form of attack.
Leigh,
How is that not a big dent in your credibility?
Leigh, I don't quite agree when you said that was way off track, because there are facts which we now know in terms of the court's decision, which were not known.
Hang on. You said last week you had no problem. Last year you had no problems at all. This week we've seen you had problems.
Yes, but what you also said is that what I said was that, not right. The fact of the matter is that the best legal advice we had said that our people would survive what we thought to be the existing law. Now, I'm very sorry that things have got to where they are, no question. And I wish I could have preempted or guessed the decision of the High Court. I know Australians don't want to have to go and vote if they don't have to. So I am sorry about that. But the court did set a different standard, a new standard as far as we're concerned, and plenty of independent experts, maybe not the government ministers, but plenty of independent experts, maybe not Liberal ads on TV, but independent experts have made it clear.
If you have a look at the judgment, the High Court makes it clear that it is not a new interpretation. It's upholding its previously stated position, which is showing that you've taken reasonable steps to renounce your citizenship is not necessarily enough to meet the constitutional requirement.
In good faith, our lawyers and our legal team presented their arguments. That wasn't our submissions. The court didn't agree with our submissions, and they've made their decision.
But regardless of whether it was your lawyer's advice or whatever, the reality is when we see what you assured Australians of last year, you misled them.
No, I go on the best advice I can get, and I am sorry that things have got to where they've got. I understand people's frustration and annoyance. But I think that this Section 44 has been quite a tricky section of the Constitution. If I'd known then what I know now, then of course we would have said something different, but I didn't.
Is this a model for how you'll deal with mistakes as Prime Minister? You'll say something misleading and then blame others instead of copping it on the chin yourself?
No. If you're saying that someone has to be infallible to be Prime Minister, the last person who could claim that died about 2,000 years on a cross. I'm not going to say I'm going to be infallible, but what I will do is act on the best advice and act in good faith.
Bill Shorten.
And that's what we've done in tonight's budget. 10 million Australians better off under Labor.
Bill Shorten, thank you very much for making time to speak to us this evening.
Lovely. Cheers.